Hello everyone and welcome. Today I want to talk about my first annual Top 10 Films of the Year list. I'm including anything that became generally available in 2024. Before we get started, let me rattle off some honorable mentions. Here they are in no particular order. Hard Truths, Queer, Evil Does Not Exist, Between the Temples, Kneecap, Nickel Boys, Look Back, and How to Make Millions Before Grandma Dies. With those out of the way, into the top 10 we go. A Different Man may be the most slept-on movie of 2024. Writer-director Aaron Schimberg was born with a cleft palate, and his deeply personal relationship with this project results in a refreshing, subverted take on the typical tropes and traps of disability representation. There's a question Schimberg asked himself when first meeting Adam Pearson, who plays Oswald, which I think is mirrored in the central theme of the movie. That question is, does my social anxiety and the way that I am come from having a cleft palate, or is that something I had always assumed? It feels like Sebastian Stan's character is asking himself the same question. His condition is not the root of his suffering. And this film forces the viewer to deconstruct their own self-image and perceptions. It's a shame that this didn't get a wider release, because it has some of the sharpest writing and performances of the year. I Saw the TV Glow has gotten a lot of hate this year, but personally I can't stop thinking about it. The soundtrack, the color schemes, and the perfectly captured look and feel of a late summer evening in the suburbs are all stuck in my head like the pink opaque is for the characters. To me, the beauty of I Saw the TV Glow is in its ambiguity. It's a film about identity, alienation, aging, the impact of the media, and I think it balances these themes well. There's a restlessness to this film that evokes some of the same feelings you get when you watch Twin Peaks. I think writer-director Jane Schonbrun does a fantastic job of building tension using this sense of despair that's always growing in the shadows. This movie is a hypnotic sensory overload, best enjoyed without too much background knowledge. It also has one of the best soundtracks from this year with some great musical performances in the film itself. At the end of the day, if you need everything about a movie to make perfect sense, this is not going to be for you. But if you like coming to your own conclusions and you don't expect everything to be straightforward, I think you'll be delighted in this neon-soaked, mysterious world. The Beast, living up to its name, is a heavy, complex film. I would describe it as experimental sci-fi where the futuristic environment is simply the stage in which the characters interact in a multi-century impossible romance. It's sort of like if Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind met the Hang the DJ episode of Black Mirror. Many of the central themes were inspired by the 1903 novella Beast in the Jungle. Léa Seydoux's character is haunted by a sense of impending tragedy that keeps the couple apart across their past lives. Seydoux is truly ephemeral. She plays this part as if she's stuck in time. On the other hand, George McKay is actually a recasting. The original French actor tragically passed away in a ski accident. I think he actually fits in nicely alongside Seydoux. There's kind of a yin and yang push and pull between the two, and they share this persistent magnetism until the very last scene. This is one of those 2023 releases, so I don't think it technically qualifies for awards this year. If it isn't eligible this year, Léa Seydoux should have been in the nominations last year for Best Actress. Her performance is that special. I don't even know where to start with Hundreds of Beavers. It's easily the most ridiculous film that I saw this year, and it's a complete blast from start to finish. The story follows a drunken Applejack salesman in his increasingly absurd attempts to outwit the titular Hundreds of Beavers. There's a great, engaging original soundtrack that helps drive the movie along, and more physical comedy packed into the film than perhaps any movie ever. Mike Cheslick is working on a micro-budget with this one, and that results in a necessity to get creative with visual effects. Many of them end up being quite inventive. The timing of the title card, for example, is genuinely the funniest moment of the year. Don't let this turn you off just because it's mostly silent and in black and white. There is a distinct modernness that feels refreshing. Of all the movies I saw this year, I think that Hundreds of Beavers is the one I'm most anticipating a rewatch on. I think there's so much going on, so much easily missed content that it necessitates hundreds of rewatches, perhaps. La Chimera is an experience hard to put into words. It's a distinctly Italian film, an idyllic folk story that can't be pinned down to a particular genre or tone. Josh O'Connor shines, despite playing this sulking, grieving, obsessive Tomb Raider who can't seem to find his place and settle down. He's straddling the line between life and death, past and present, appearing almost ghostly, yet still charming, sharply dressed in a linen suit yet constantly dirty, as if he's already been buried. There's a clear inspiration from Indiana Jones, but this version is less concerned with the heroic journey as it is with the examination of the morality of his pursuits. Who do the riches of past generations belong to? Does it simply go to whoever digs it up first? Now, there's definitely a loose narrative here, so I know this film isn't for everybody. Director Alicia Vorwacher describes the film as an archaeological exercise in itself. As the viewer, we're unearthing little pieces of Arthur one at a time, learning about his past, his motivations, and his place in his community. I think it's the dreamy Italian realism and the great performances by Carol Duarte and Josh O'Connor that make this movie so magical. What can I say about Dune 2 that hasn't already been said? I think it's for sure the blockbuster of the year, without a doubt. Adapting a fantastical, mega-popular book series is cinema's most daunting task. We can really only look back to Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings as end-to-end true successes. We'll see how this latest adaptation concludes, but Dune Part 2 is a marvel, albeit lacking in the intimate character-building moments that the book excelled in. I feel like Denis Villeneuve clearly prioritized spectacle over substance for this interpretation. I think that works well when the action is this intense and the world of Arrakis is this visually striking. The VFX work is technical perfection, and each action scene is propped up with this expertly composed score from Hans Zimmer. If this is the future of big-budget sci-fi, I think we're on the right track. And look, I get adaptation exhaustion too, but there is not a film in the top 40 or so box office performers this year that matches the level of sincere effort visible in Dune 2. It's probably my #1 theater experience of the year. Sure, do I wish the characters were a little bit more fleshed out and that the actors were given a little bit more of a script to work with? Absolutely. But it's not like we got that from any other big-budget action movies this year. Denis Villeneuve remains one of my favorite active directors today, and as long as he's attached to the Dune franchise, I'm willing to watch it. At the heart of Sing Sing is a group of incarcerated men. Some of them choose to participate, for a variety of reasons, in a theater program. The program is a delicate ecosystem, a sanctuary of safety and vulnerability existing within one of the most depraved places a man or woman can find themselves. When dealing with such a limited environment, the script is so crucial to success. I have to commend the writers for not condensing this true story into an easily consumable cliché. It could have very easily devolved into the sappy Oscar bait that nobody wants to see. They certainly did their research on this subject. Not only is it well written, but the script is complemented so well by casting real former members of the program. Domingo and Racy are the foundational pillars. Their experience builds a synergy with the less seasoned ensemble. Of that ensemble, it's Clarence Macklin that stands out for me. He takes this opportunity to deliver a transcendent performance. Sing Sing is a profoundly honest portrayal of unfiltered masculine introspection that aches with decades of collective pain. As Divine G tells Divine I, anger is the easiest thing to play. What's more complicated is to play hurt. This is not a film about anger or violence. It's about using your voice, using your pain, and the process of self-expression to reconstruct who you are when your identity and freedom have been stripped from you. It's a shame this film didn't get a wider release last year, but I'm so happy that it's getting the recognition it deserves now. Sing Sing is equal parts heartbreaking and hopeful, and it's the film for my top 10 list that exceeded my expectations the most. When I heard Sean Baker's newest film had won the Palme d'Or, I was so excited to see it. I think this is the funniest film Baker has made so far. His neo-realist style and overlapping dialogue perfectly suits the comedic moments. In Anora, Baker showed that he's mastered letting those group scenes breathe and flow. Interpretations of what he's trying to convey here have been wide-ranging, and Baker himself has admitted the ending is designed to be inconclusive, at least in the sense of what Annie's future holds. But what I can feel for sure is a constant sense of insecurity, a shadow of doubt that follows Annie. A lot of that feeling has to do with how she is commoditized. To Ivan, his family, and their henchmen, Annie is simply a plaything of Ivan's. I think that's what draws Annie and Igor together. both have been warped into something less than human in the eyes of Ivan and his family. Annie is simply used for her beauty and Igor for his brawn. The one piece of clarity I have in all of this is that Mikey Madison is a blossoming star. Hers is the most commanding performance of any Baker film, and honestly, I was shocked when I first listened to her talk in interviews. Her personality is totally different from Annie's. She's completely transformed for this role. And speaking of roles, Sean Baker is on one. With 4 exceptional films in a row, I can't wait to see what his next film entails. When I saw my first Luca film, I hated it. It took some time for him to grow on me, and when I first heard that Zendaya, Josh O'Connor, and Mike Feist were going to star in his next tennis romance movie, I did not have high hopes. But for a guy that says he doesn't know anything about tennis, he sure knows how to shoot a tennis match with energy and momentum. His idealistic style is a perfect fit to help inject the somewhat mundane parts of tennis with tension, alongside a thumping score and sexy shot choices. I love how the time jumps allow the action to start and stop. The film itself is moving like a game of tennis. This premise reminds me of Y Tu Mama Tambien, but with an extra dose of competition. One of the most recurring criticisms of this movie is that the characters lack substance and development. And I agree that Lucasfilms are never going to hit all of the right emotional chords. But in my mind, we can find everything we need to know in the physical acting. How they look at each other, when they decide to smile and laugh, how they're positioned in a particular conversation. These communicate nuances and behaviors that don't necessarily need to be revealed through dialogue. There is a subtle, persistent power play going on. The off-court scenes are matches in themselves, each character constantly trying to gain the upper hand. This film is at its best when a match is ongoing. What keeps it from becoming a US Open commercial is that constant nonverbal communication. The finale is enthralling even without words. Of all of Lucas' films, I believe Challengers is the most intoxicating. And my number 1 film of the year is Roadhouse. Just kidding. How could it be anything but The Brutalist? Brady Corbet spent the better part of a decade getting this film done and distributed. It's 3.5 hours long, but as soon as the opening sequence begins, it's clear that Corbett has confidently and meticulously crafted every second. This score is seared into my brain, the calculated and mechanical sound, a chorus of hammering, drilling, horns and sirens is simultaneously triumphant and distressing. It almost sounds like Laszlo's urge to create building up inside of him, and much of the first half of the movie is about that, things being constantly in motion. You can sense that there's a growing purpose in the rhythm. Adrian Brody is a master at playing a pained character without overdoing it. Guy Pearce transforms into a perfect caricature of an enigmatic, overbearing patron. He's more metaphor than man, often ridiculously funny, but there are visible cracks in his persona, something unstable and dark inside ready to burst out. This film reminds me quite a lot of The Bridge Over the River Kwai. Both examine the paradox of achievement and obsession. A task this grand becomes a double-edged sword, both a source of perceived greatness and accomplishment, as well as a path to personal ruin. In a way, The Brutalist is a metaphor for filmmaking itself, and mirrors the struggle I imagine Corbett felt in actually getting the thing made. Now, no film is perfect, and I wanted this video to be mostly spoiler-free, so I won't get into the details and defending why I think it still works, despite a lacking second half. It's not enough of a drop-off to undercut what was achieved in total. I think it's a testament to the art of filmmaking and a special movie that reminds us why we go to the theater in the first place. So that will wrap up my top 10 movies of 2024. Please leave a comment if you think I missed anything or you have a different list. And as always, go see more movies, bring your friends to those movies, and thanks for watching my video. I will see you in the next one.